I had a ghost experience. I saw a ghost. Something very strange happened to me. And I found out that another person on a different day in the same place saw the same thing. And I kind of was like, I am not like that. Absolutely happened. That is absolutely unexplainable. And I remember as a 17-year-old going, I know I am not lying. I know that people might think I'm making this up, but I'm not. And then that kind of opened this loop of thinking of, well, if I'm not lying, then surely other people aren't making things up.
Hello and welcome to the Go Encourage podcast, where I talk to real people about real life, trying to gain some insight from their experiences building courage. On today's episode, I'm about to be joined by clinical hypnotherapist and actress Rebecca Jackson. Let's get Rebecca into the studio and let's get this episode started. Hello, Rebecca. Welcome to the Go Encourage podcast. So excited to have you on today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
And before I ask you where you are right now, do you know what your name means? It's a question I ask everyone straight away.
So my name is Hebrew and it means to tie and to bind, I think.
So I believe that your name is a word that's spoken over you your whole life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the meaning of the name is quite important or quite significant, or can be quite significant, I should say. So in this case, if it's to tie and to bind, do you feel like that's something that is a thread in your life?
Yeah, I guess I believe in like unionship. I believe that we're all interconnected and one. And I try and seek to understand myself through others, I suppose, and that's what you do in acting, isn't it? You try and understand others and you kind of embody that. And I guess you take your own truth and integrate the two together so you can create a more honest performance,
Yeah. So you brought up acting there. You're an actress.
I am an actress. Well, I'm an in-between jobs actress. It's definitely in between work.
Okay. What kind of acting are you into or have you done?
I trained in like theatre and performance, and most of what I've gone on to do has been like children's entertainment, presenting, corporate voiceover and commercials and stuff like that. But it's been fun, I do enjoy it.
UK based?
UK based, yeah. I've traveled a little bit, but usually with like the more kind of corporate-y children's stuff. So
right. And it's been I can tell by the smile on your face, but I was going to ask you, do you enjoy it?
I do enjoy it, but do you know what? I kind of refer to my acting career a bit like, the being in love with the unavailable lover. I mean, like it's never available for love and you want it so badly and you're always like, I'm going to work on it. I'm going to make it better. And then just at the point you decide you're done and you're like, I'm breaking up with acting and I'm walking away. That's the point that, my acting lover will come to me and go, here's a job, stay with me. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be different this time. And then it never is. So
what a great analogy. That's brilliant. I'm still here. And he opens the door and you get swept up into it again.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's not. I guess these things, you have an expectation, don't you, of how they're going to turn out, and they don't always happen as you expect. But I do believe everything happens for a reason. And, it's certainly helped me to learn how to live a life of doing things I enjoy, being free of a workplace, free of a boss, and making lots of like interesting friends along the way. So everything comes with something, even if it doesn't quite show up the way you had hoped it to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I'm totally on board with that. So I did A-level theatre studies, right? And so part of a little bit of a dream that I had was, I could go into the acting world, and I really like the theatre, and I really like the idea of the energy you get on a performance and things like that. But one of the things about it was the bond. A little bit, in line with your name there. The bond that you have with your cast is like beyond family. It's incredible the way that you support each other, the way that you kind of help each other when someone's kind of missed out a line, etc., etc. So yeah, I can totally relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, it's such a good point because it's like, when you're doing a play, I mean, you're an ensemble, which means you're all interconnected. So there is like an unspoken communication. You're aware of that audience, but you're aware of everyone else. And so, yeah, you do get very close to your cast members, and then you kind of grieve it when it's over because they're not your colleagues for life. But yeah, I think, and you do a lot of that when you're training in acting, which is, I suppose, kind of tuning into a collective group essence and energy, which we are all interconnected with,
Were you originally from Glasgow? Did you grow up there?
No, so I was born in London, and then I moved up to Scotland and
Oh, okay.
like lived in quite a few different places between Glasgow and Edinburgh. Back to Glasgow.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about your family, the dynamics that you grew up in?
Yeah, so my mum's English, my dad's Northern Irish, and I guess like yeah, I was brought up in a very kind of I would count myself as quite a spiritual person. But I think because of my Northern Irish background, I came from a family that were very like against and anti-religion for obvious reasons. And my grandparents on my dad's side came from very, very religious backgrounds. And I think they were quite ahead of their time in the sense that they decided, like, we've had enough of this nonsense, all the grief and the war, all the sadness and the pain in the name of religion. Like, I believe in science. Prove to me what is out there, because I'm not kind of fighting over this anymore. And in a way, it's funny because I've kind of gone the other way around, where I come from quite a kind of atheist, anti-religious family. But I think it's actually like a really important thing that perhaps has happened in the West and is happening in other parts of the world. Like if you go to India, a lot of the kind of progressive young generation are very much embodying this idea of atheism. And it makes sense to me because I'm like, historically, religion has been a part of law and order. It has been very oppressive. And in a way, when science came along, there was something incredibly liberating and freeing about that. We have proof. We are not fighting in the name of spirituality anymore. I guess I just sort of feel like, just not throw out the baby with the bathwater. And so I feel like I'm of a generation that's kind of reintegrating that faith and kind of hopefully aligning it a bit with science and the stuff that we already know.
Yeah. It's so interesting as well because in its essence, science is the pursuit of knowledge, right? But I think faith is as well. Religion, not so much. I think religion's a different thing. But with faith, you're trying to find answers, aren't you? So you go in open-minded, and I think science is the same. You go in open-minded, trying to find answers, whereas one will be based on maybe belief and experience, and the other one will be based on what can be proved. But the two kind of do work alongside each other to some extent. Whereas religion, I think religion can be, touching on what you said there as well, just it can be a source of identity that then becomes, when attacked, it then becomes you're defending this thing that you don't actually understand anyway, and you're projecting all of your sort of fears and belief systems based on a structure that might be man-made.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I think it's just interesting, isn't it? Because all religions have such similar qualities to them, don't they? And, there's there's beautiful elements to all religions, but then they all do seem to come with like these ideas around morality and how we're meant to live our life. And that does seem like the human contract element to it,
Yeah, totally agree. I love how deep we got already. As a young girl, what did you envision yourself becoming when you grew up? What was your ambition looking to the future?
I wanted to be an actress. And it's funny because I actually, when I reflect back on that, I don't think I knew what an actress really was. I do just remember being like 6 and going, I want to be an actress. That's what I want to do. And I was listening to someone talk recently, and they were saying that actually a lot of the clues in terms of what we go on to do in our life do lie in our childhood. Like as in the games we play, like whether you're like an adventure seeker or a hairdresser, and children like have not got a developed left prefrontal cortex, so they are entirely just subconscious mind. They're in the theta brainwave state, which is considered to be kind of a good connection to the divine, if that's the kind of thing you're into. And so there is something that children, I believe, are very connected to, you know? And so I just think it's interesting to reflect on that. Like, what were the games you were playing when you were a
Mm.
kid? And have they kind of, you know, are they connected to the things that you're doing as an adult? But yes, I
Yeah.
loved play. I loved dressing up, and nothing's ever changed. So,
Do you know what? Just touching on that, like, if you going back to the faith and the science thing, like scientifically, or at least psychological assessment evaluation, the early years are the most significant in your life, and it kind of does dictate where you go in life, right? People have studied and seen that. I used to work in early years, so the first 4 or 5 years of your life are really really important. Let's put it that way. But then,
absolutely.
from a faith perspective,
Hmm.
it's also said that be like young children,
Hmm.
be in the way that you live your life, which is to have an air of innocence, to have an air of wonder, and to
Hmm.
follow things without overthinking about it, if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
To be curious and to be, I mean, children are so
Curious.
present, aren't they? You know?
Mm,
And yeah, that's when your brain gets developed. I'm sort of, there's all this, I absolutely am with you. Like, I believe that we set ourselves up for mental health between the ages
mm,
of 0 and 3 or up to 7. But I do also think sometimes those like teen years are overlooked. Like, I have a
mhm,
sense that possibly between 13 and 16 for girls and 14 to 17 for boys are also very important and primitive years in terms of setting us up for mental health, you know.
mm,
And there's a lot of misunderstandings about teenagers in our culture, I think. Um, you know,
mm.
like if you look at nurseries, sorry, I'm
Yeah.
going off subject here, but
No, no, like, I'm
if you
interested.
look at the way we are in nurseries, you know, we're all very like, hello, boys and girls, everything's very gentle and we're all getting on. And primary school, it's all very lovely. But then as soon as you go into a secondary school, and I remember this because I used to work in secondary school, like the teachers would come out and be all stressed and be like, right, you, back of the room, like yelling and shouting. It's so horrible. And don't get me wrong,
Mm,
like obviously teenagers are difficult, but I'm like, what happens between 3 and 14 where we think it's acceptable to like yell and shout and degrade and humiliate a teenager? Like, they're still children, you know?
mm,
And I think that they are very, very important years. They are years of coming of age. It's a transition between childhood and adulthood, and we're kind of lost in that space at the
mm.
moment, you know, in terms of how we help navigate our young people into that adult transition.
Yeah, because
Hmm.
they're given so much independence relative to what they've had before as well.
Hmm.
So all the things that they've sponged up in those early years are now um, given some expression. Not
Hmm.
not not all the things, but there'll be some things, and then the way that teenagers, and I'm seeing this as well, but the way that they're responding is now to go, oh, what am I? Who am I? What am I about? What is this world about?
Hmm.
Etc. And you kind of go, wait till you're in your 20s, and
Hmm.
then see what happens then. Um,
Friends.
so, so you wanted to be an actress. Fast forward to today.
Yeah.
What is it that you do now, and how did you find yourself getting there?
So I am a clinical hypnotherapist. So I'm trained in solution focused hypnotherapy, and I also do past life regressional hypnotherapy. So I like to integrate a bit of the
Mm,
two, using it to help with physical and mental health, and also using that part of our minds to explore what goes beyond, like, I guess, our human existence, which I think is absolutely possible. Um, and yeah, you know, I've always had a curiosity about um, what goes beyond this existence.
mhm,
I've always been fascinated with the connection between our minds and our bodies, our ability to kind of heal ourselves holistically. Um, and should I give you a bit of background about what led me to like
Yeah, let's go, because
that
like
event? So I had
I can't move on with those kinds of,
yeah.
you've made some big things there. Go for it.
So so I was living for like a good 4 years with endometriosis. So for those that don't know what endometriosis is, it's essentially like uh, growths on the womb that create like absolute chronic pain when you get your period. So every month for about 4 years, I was lying on my bathroom floor, relentlessly vomiting. I would sometimes pass out from the pain. I couldn't walk.
Oh
I'd be
wow.
crawling on 4s. It was absolutely hideous. And obviously very scary because you don't know what's happening to your body. Like, why is my body breaking down on me? I don't understand this. And my first protocols will go to the doctor, and the doctors just kind of looked at me and went, well, I don't know, like, periods get bad. And so I was a bit like, but this isn't in my head. Like, this is really happening. And then I discovered that the only way that they can diagnose endometriosis is to have an operation, which to me is kind of crazy. Like, we should have some research in place, I think, where it should be possible to diagnose it for a blood test. But the only way they can diagnose it. So I didn't really want to have this operation, but I got to a point where it was, it was kind of, to an extent, taking over my life, because you don't know when you're going to be in a private space, to deal with pain that's causing you to pass out and throw up. And so I was always afraid. I was like, what if I've got a job interview, or if I want to train? So it was causing me a lot of stress and anxiety, as well as physical pain. So I went on to have the operation. Turns out I did have endometriosis. And then within a couple of months of having the operation, like, all of the pain came back, and I just thought, I cannot live my life like this. Like, there's got to be another way around it. And I was just told, it's a chronic condition, you have it for life, and you just have to manage it. And then somebody suggested to me that I get acupuncture, and I kind of thought, I've had acupuncture in the past. Like, I felt a little bit patronized. I was like, I need really strong painkillers for this. This isn't just something you can just fix with that. But I gave it a go, and I did some research, and I'll name drop him. He's called Alan Hunter. He lives in, he's an acupuncturist in Glasgow. He does 5-element acupuncture. So I went to see him, and he said, you haven't had real acupuncture yet. And essentially what he did in the first 90-minute session was he wanted to get a whole holistic understanding of me, not of my health background, but of, like, my mum and dad's relationship. Are they married? Where am I in the pecking order? What's my favorite color? What's my favorite season? He wanted to get an understanding of who I am in the essence of my nature. What grief, what anger, what sadness, what is my emotional history? Am I holding things in my body? Because it's believed in ancient Chinese medicine that we store emotions in the body. So we have lots of meridians in our energy, our chi, if you like, our prana kind of flows through our body. But a bit like traffic, if we're holding on to anger, or if we're holding on to shame, and we're not feeling it and expressing it, it gets stuck. And I guess in the law of energy, like, energy can only change form, it's never dissolved. So in a sense, it then physically manifests itself into physical health conditions. And we've kind of got a bit of a concept in this in the West, because we've kind of understood that stress can cause heart attack. So one emotion, one body part, but could we store anger in the liver, or fear in the kidneys? So that's kind of how Chinese medicine operates. Anyway, he gave me 5 rounds of acupuncture, and he came up with a diagnosis for me. And that was at the time, to support my acting, I was doing nannying work. And he said to me, I think you have angry ovaries. And essentially, when you are, because I was a live-in nanny, so I've worked for like 3 months at a time living with families. He was like, I essentially think what's going on here is that you are in an environment where children are kicking off. You're getting a lot of aggression, passive aggression from parents. And of course, when you're working, you feel that frustration and that anger of the child flaring up, the parent perpetuating the behavior and getting at you. And then what do you do with that anger? Well, you push it down, and you're polite, and you're calm, and you're patient. But then I'm not going home at the end of the day. And so what he was saying essentially is, it's no surprise that it's coming out in your feminine center, all this anger, all this fire, and all this rage. And I was like, that's what it feels like. It feels like a lot of heat and a lot of burning energy. And then I was literally able to link it. I was like, actually, at its worst point, it was always when I was working in another country for 3 months. And then I was directly able to link it with how often I worked. And as I slowly moved away from that, and I did the 5 rounds of acupuncture, gone. Completely gone, no pain. And I just want that to be like an inspiring message for people, that you absolutely are not at the mercy of these conditions. It is totally possible to heal yourself and heal your body. But I'm absolutely in the camp that all of our physical health conditions are linked to our emotional health. We're just kind of trying to understand it. And that's where hypnotherapy came in, because suddenly I was like, hypnotherapy is essentially working with the placebo effect, which fascinates me. How, the
Wait, did you
placebo,
say working with the placebo
yeah, all
effect?
hypnosis is placebo. It's
Interesting.
like using the power of belief and essentially getting your clients into a place of belief where they believe that you are doing something, and then therefore it has that effect.
Mm.
So it's all about using the power of the mind. And I mean,
Mhm.
like, there are just incredible stories of miracle healings that I've had from like fellow hypnotherapists, my lecturers, that, I guess they're not studied and they can't be proven, but it blows my
Mhm.
mind that there is something to do with when we get people into a relaxed state, we open up that subconscious mind,
Mhm.
we're able to harmonize something. And so, yeah, so I kind of like, I became fascinated with holistic health, and I went on to do a year-long course, and it just felt like, everything aligned. Like, it was everything I was obsessed with, everything I was listening to, podcasts. It was all about the neuroscience, the brain, how the brain works in terms of our relationship with self and emotions and our bodies
Mhm.
and our hormones, and so now I'm kind of on a path where I'd like to use that information to help people help themselves, I suppose.
That's beautiful.
Oh,
Thank you for
thanks.
sharing that. I think we'll unpack that a little bit more in a little while. But I think I will say that last year I was going through some tough stuff, and I actually reached out to someone for some EFT,
Hmm.
and she was a hypnotherapist as well, and so she did put that as part of her service, and I was quite cynical about that aspect of things
Hmm.
because I was thinking, when I click and I say duck, you're gonna quack like a duck. You hear, the Paul McKenna stuff, and you
Yeah,
like
yeah.
hypnosis.
Which is
But
giving hypnosis a really bad reputation.
it does.
People are very afraid of it because of that, but it's
Yeah, they see it as like mind control, don't they?
it's the
More than
power.
anything
It's
else.
just the power of suggestion. That's all it is. It's people being
Yeah.
suggestive to what you ask them to do. Be a duck, okay.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And so I did like I can't remember, it was like a 10-week course or something like that. Shout out Louise if you're listening.
Hmm.
I'm trying to get her on as a podcast guest in the future. But I just found it so helpful, and it was a little bit like that.
Hmm.
What do you eat? What is going on in your life? And it was like, and I'm like, well, why is this relevant? Like right now, this is what I'm dealing with, and this is what I need to work
Hmm.
through. But actually, I'm just showing that as a kind of a testimony to what you're saying as well. And when I went through that, it was so powerful,
Hmm.
and some of the techniques I still use them to
Hmm.
this day in
Hmm.
terms of just grounding, in terms of making sure that I'm operating from a place that is aligned with who I am as opposed to what I think I ought to be doing or responding to what's going on around me.
Hmm.
So it's really powerful. And that was just on that level.
Yeah.
That wasn't to do with, physical pain or anything like that. But there's another lady that I might send you the link to as well. And she worked in the medical industry, and as she worked through that, she came to the realization that actually a lot of this stuff is based on the emotions that we carry and the lack of intimacy that we have with ourselves. And
Absolutely.
and so she works as an intimacy coach as well. So you're starting to see this stuff pop up, and I think, is it quantum physics is now starting to prove some of this
Yeah.
stuff about energy and how it does impact the body,
Hmm.
and how important it is to sort of unclog the sink, so to speak, so that you're able to flow freely.
Yeah, and I think people need that to sort of to help them understand it or believe it. But for me, I find it very inspiring when you hear about these miracle healing stories, even though we don't really
Mm.
know how they happen. It demonstrates that it is possible.
Mm.
And I do think, whenever I had endometriosis, there was a window of time I felt quite patronized. If people would go, "Oh, you're just very stressed," I go, "How dare you? This is not stress. And this is not
Mm.
psychosomatic. This is physical. It is real. I'm feeling it in
Yep.
my body." And I think, for some people, they can feel like, by saying it's somewhat emotional, you're underestimating the realness of it, which
Yeah.
absolutely isn't the case.
I totally agree, and we're starting to see that the world catch up with mental health and making it more of a, putting it more at the forefront on how it does impact us. again, like you said, usually on a stress level, but actually we're starting to learn that it's much deeper than that,
Yeah.
much deeper than that.
But even on a stress level, like most of us have heard of what cortisol is and adrenaline. These are stress hormones. When we're thinking bad thoughts, when we're very stressed, our heart rate increases. We release a lot of cortisol, and cortisol is an immunosuppressant. So it shuts down your immune system. It turns off your sympathetic nervous system so that you're like able to fight, run, or hide. And so, of course, it's absolutely directly connected to our body and how our body is operating. And we need to be in a rest state in order to heal and for our immune systems to work. So just that one hormone alone does have a connection to our physical health, you know?
Yeah. It's so interesting because we kind of know it, don't we? Like, we'll go for a massage, we'll go and smoke a cigarette or have some alcohol, whatever. And what we're doing there is we're kind of creating relaxants within us so the body can relax. But what we're not doing is going to that deeper level and understanding what's at the root of what's going on. We're kind of putting band-aids on it for the day. I'm not saying I'm not going to speak to alcohol and cigarettes, but like a massage, it's going to be good for you, right?
Yeah.
Or you're going to enjoy it, or whether it's a run or a physical activity, or some crazy people go running, like do the marathon or whatever.
Addicted to
But
running. No, I do think it's true. It's like you have to remember when it comes to like substances, whether we like to binge on junk food or drink or cigarettes, again, it is connected to our emotions because like obviously these substances are bad for us, but what is driving us to consume them? Predominantly usually stress. And so how much of it is stress that is damaging us or the substances? Now, I sort of feel like if you're not stressed in the first place, you're not going to take these substances that are causing you great harm. But we all kind of do have stories about people. Like my great granny smoked till she was 104. I am not in any way condoning smoking. Smoking is terrible for you, but it is an example of something.
it'll get you to 104, so that's
But it's an example of somebody, and you hear about Greek centurions and they smoke a cigar. I'm sort of like, if we can live in a place of harmony and happiness, like in a way that trumps all, you know what I mean? And again,
that deep joy, and
deep
sense of
joy
peace.
can conquer all, really. It can.
I
It
agree.
can with our health. So
Just on the subject of cigarettes, right? This came up this week actually. I was in a coaching session with this person at work, and we were just talking about breath work. And he comes from a little bit of he's a bit street, so breath work's a bit really, but he smokes. So I was like, okay, but what do you do when you smoke? You're taking a deep puff, aren't you? You're inhaling, and then you're exhaling, and then there's a sense of relaxation. Then you carry on, and then you do that for the whole, stick that you're smoking. And then he was like, oh, okay. And I was like, try and do that without one. Just sit in a room and try and do that without one. And then he did. And you could see he was starting to relax, and he was starting to, like, the light bulb was starting to switch on. And you just think, imagine more of us were able to get into that breath work and get into a little bit of mindfulness, even if it's just a couple of minutes a day, how much impact that would make to the rest of the day.
100%, because you're taking like deep breaths in and out and slowing your breathing down. That's a good point.
It's cool. All right. What made you decide to come on the podcast today?
Because I think it's good to like share knowledge and information, and I love podcast culture, don't you? I mean, it's just you asked me what TV I watch. The truth is, I don't watch a lot of TV because I love to listen to podcasts. That's my favorite form of entertainment, and I think it's great. Gone are the days at last of like sound bites on the news or people speaking for 5 minutes. Like, of course, you can't get a message across. Like, we're in the era of valuing intellectual opinion, and that means taking a deep dive into what someone has to say for a good, 90 minutes. So yeah, I'm a big fan of podcasts. So of course I couldn't turn down the opportunity to be on one.
Yeah, and this one specifically, right?
Absolutely.
I think just touching on what you said there, I think there's something about us as a society that craves authenticity.
Mm.
And I get asked sometimes, "Oh, is your podcast scripted?" Nope. Is it? Is there a rehearsal beforehand? Nope. There's a pre-call sometimes, if I don't know someone, but generally it's just a real conversation between two people. And I think there's something beautiful about that, as opposed to watching a program that's been scripted and your emotions have been almost pre-planned when someone's done that. Whereas here we're just having a real chat, and it's great.
Absolutely. And they say something that's been circulating on the internet recently is that authenticity is the highest state of being. It's like 400 times higher than the frequency of love. So I always thought
Wow.
I'm blissed out state of love is like,
Yeah.
the ultimate enlightenment, but it's authenticity. And that makes so much sense because that's everything starts from that place, if you go into a job that you really don't like, but you're showing up every day and being lovely and being nice, then of course you're going to feel out of sync because you're not operating from a place of truth. You're in an environment where you can't be who you really are. And that can make you very unhappy, and it goes both ways. Like we relate to people from a place of truth.
Yeah.
When we're in environments with people that we don't quite click with, sometimes a lot of that is down to the fact that there's just something that's not very natural there. It's all a bit awkward, and it's because the authenticity is missing. And
Yeah.
so I think aspiring to be the truest version of yourself is the best place you can be, really.
Rebecca, have you subscribed to the Going Courage podcast?
Absolutely.
Yay! Would you recommend others do as well? If so, why?
Absolutely, because I think, again, podcast culture, it's good to listen to a multitude of different opinions. And I also love your overarching theme of like what makes courage. Courage is something that, we all have to work with in one way or another. And I like the context of that.
Excellent. And that's where we're going to go to. So you touched a little bit about atheism and being a spiritual person yourself. So do you believe that there's a spiritual power? Do you believe that there's a God? What do you believe?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I believe in like a collective consciousness. I believe that we're all energy. I absolutely believe that when we die, although it's something to be feared of, it is a beautiful thing. I think we go back to source being a collective energy of love. And that collective energy of love kind of shows up for different people in different ways. Maybe as Jesus, maybe as God, maybe as angels or guides or your higher self. But yeah, and I do also believe that we plan our lives, that we plan our greatest gifts and our greatest struggles, and that ultimately we come here to help expand that collective consciousness and to grow and evolve and to have different human experiences.
Which coming from an atheist background, how did you go from there to this quite relatively wild belief system?
I mean,
Compared to where you started.
I always loved like ghosts and goblins and witches. I mean, I was always fascinated by it as a child. They'd always be like, "Tell me a ghost story," and then someone would tell me, and I go, "Is it scary?" And they go, "Yeah, is." And I go, "No, don't tell me. No, do tell me. I do want to know about it." So I always had a sense of something, and then where I actually went to India when I was 17, so I was very young. So I'd been brought up being told, listen, that's all nonsense. I hadn't come to my own decisions about it. And then when I went to India, of course, India is so spiritual and religious. And one of the first questions people would ask you isn't like, how are you? What's your name? It was, who is your God? And then whenever I would go, I don't have a God. I don't have a religion. They just could not believe it, and it wasn't like there was no judgment about what your religion was or who your God was. But collectively, it felt like people just could not believe, how have you lived a life without faith, without worship, without a God? So of course, while I was there, I wasn't going for those reasons, but I ended up pondering and considering all of that stuff a lot. And of course, it's India, you know, there's a lot of hippies there kind of talking about these things as well. And then, as like coincidence would have it, I actually had I had a ghost experience. I saw a ghost. Something very strange happened to me, and I found out that another person on a different day in the same place saw the same thing. And I kind of was like, I am not like that. Absolutely happened. That is absolutely unexplainable. And I remember as a 17-year-old going, I know I am not lying. I know that people might think I'm making this up, but I'm not. And then that kind of opened this loop of thinking of, well, if I'm not lying, then surely other people aren't making things up. And suddenly that opened this sort of like, there's something out there, I don't know what. And I guess that just kind of just grew into my 20s. And of course, like many people, I discovered The Secret.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I discovered The Secret, and it was like, oh, you can think and visualize and get what you want. I was like, so I can think of an acting career and visualize it? Great. I'm on board with that. But it was quite empowering in a way that it's like, actually, you're not at the mercy of your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
You can choose how you think. But I do think when it comes to like manifestation and stuff like that, it is a lot more complex than that. You know, like our conscious minds are literally only 10% of our overall minds. That means 90% of what goes on in our lives is orchestrated by the subconscious. Like, that's absolutely wild. And of course, that is the driving force that is going to trump all of those thoughts that you have. But I think the reason that that book was so successful and it worked so well for so many people is because, I guess, if you do think something enough times, you can form a habit with it. Like in 40 days or 90 days, like if you really go for it, you can rewire belief systems into your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is attached to your body. Your body is attached to a subtle energetic body. Your subtle energetic body is attached to an infinite web of timeless situations and people, and then you attract all that good stuff. But of course, if you're somebody who is suppressing a lot of rage and a lot of shame, you might try to think positively, but ultimately that's just going to overpower and crush that, which is why I'm sort of in the camp that we have to address what's going on behind the scenes and feel it, release it, and then that gives us a much better slate to just merely think positively, you know?
Yeah, powerful. I have to ask, what was the ghost thing? Like, I think I'd regret afterwards going, oh, I didn't ask.
Okay, it's a bit of a benign story, but for me, it was just like there was no way of explaining it. So I was in a hotel room, and it was right in the tip. What was it called? Nagarcoil, I think, in the tip of India.
Right.
And I actually went there just like weeks after the tsunami as well.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
the 2004? Yeah, in 2004. So I was in this hotel room.
Did you say 2004?
It was December 2004, and I think I went to India in like January 2005 or so. I was pretty young when I went. So yeah. Yeah, so I was in this hotel room, and I went for a shower, and then I heard somebody walk into the room, and I sort of panicked a bit, and I locked the door. And there was a TV in the room, and the TV switched off, so I knew someone was in there, and I could hear them rustling about. And I'd also like to add that you do get a lot of power cuts in India, but like the light was on in the bathroom, so it wasn't a power cut. So I was like, eventually this person left the room, and then I came out into the room, and all the drawers were open, the wardrobes were open. Somebody had been in, and I sat down at the edge of the bed. And I suddenly realized that the hotel, like the door, it was like locked, but it was locked from the inside. And I was like, like I'd already checked passports and stuff like that, by the way. So I was like, I'm fine. Nothing's been nicked. But I remember thinking that's like impossible. Like, how is somebody come into the room? And then that night I went to sleep. And then I woke up in the night, and I saw 3 women standing at the end of the bed. And they were Western women. And so it was all a bit weird. I just kind of forgot about it. And then a week later, I was staying in that hotel room with another girl who I was traveling with. And then she kind of said to me, I want to tell you something really weird that happened to me last week. And I was like, what? And she's like, I don't actually forget it. You're just going to write it off as nonsense. And then she's like, I'm getting chills talking about it. And she's like, I'm getting goosebumps. She didn't know anything that had happened to me. And then I was like, what happened? And she was like, the same thing happened to her. She saw 3 women standing at the end of the bed.
Wow.
And she didn't know about my experience. And something, just a penny dropped my mind. I was like, wow, like that really happened, you know?
And like no windows
Like
open, no one climbed in.
huh?
No, like the windows weren't open.
Well,
People
it was
climbing
on
in.
I think it was on like a 5th or 6th floor,
Oh,
and the
okay.
windows were shut. And it was, it was like one of those just normal little bathroom locks, if you know what I mean. So I mean, I never like looked into it more. I never like asked the hotel or anything like that. But it was just like, it was enough. It was enough for me to know like there is something. And I still love ghost stories. I find them so interesting. But I think ghosts actually are just like trapped energies, because you always hear about ghosts. They're always like people who are really distressed. And if like there's no such thing as time and space, that's what you kind of always hear, isn't it? Is it maybe like very intense energies, when something very dramatic, very sudden, very awful happens, that energy just kind of gets stuck, and it just kind of like a hologram reemerges itself in different periods of time. I have no idea. I mean, I guess we don't really study things like ghosts that much, so that's my own wacky theory on it.
Okay, all right. Oh, thanks for sharing that. Like, and then it's so interesting that your friend had the same experience as well. That's just like that's got to be the thing that goes, oh my gosh, like it's not just me, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I had something weird happen a few weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, there's something in the room. There's something in the room. It's not that interesting of a story, but when I turned the light on, it was a big spider
Oh, yeah.
on
Nobody
top
wants.
of
That's
some
worse than a
boxes.
ghost for a lot of people, isn't it? Now.
It was it was it was massive, and he was just like looking at me like, yeah, and what? And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I need to go and get this spider. But what I did was, because it was so big, this has got nothing to do with this podcast, but I just picked up my phone. I thought I'll take a picture, because it's huge, and
Yeah.
then I'll go and get it. So I take the picture, and it must have been shy, because as soon as I took the picture, it legged it, and it's been in, I don't know where it went in my room, and I can't find it. So
Oh, are you
no,
scared
there's
of
a spider in it.
spiders?
Sorry.
Are you scared of spiders?
Yeah, I used to be petrified.
Yeah.
Whereas I think over time, and this kind of taps into what you were saying about the subconscious mind, I've kind of rewired myself to say, no, it's okay. Whatever happened when I was younger with the spider, whatever, like that was a memory that
Hmm.
needs to be explored, unlocked. I don't like spiders,
Hmm.
but if there is one, I can carry on with my life. I can trap it in a glass and take it outside,
Yeah, that's
etc.
an amazing like journey from being really afraid to
Mm,
being able to remove them. Hypnosis
yeah,
is really effective for fears and phobias because it
yeah.
is just a primitive fear response. And so hypnosis is all working with those, that again, subconscious primitive mind.
Well, there is one fear that maybe you can help me with, so maybe I'll have to book in a session with you. But I have a fear of heights, and I can't shake it. Like I've tried, like I want to jump out of a plane at some point, because I just have to, like,
Oh
because like
God.
going courage, right? I have to face like every fear,
Mhm.
and so that one, I haven't been able to reprogram or take that one on.
Yeah.
But honestly, I could just go up like I could go up in a shopping mall, go to the top on the escalator, and I'm like, ah.
But where did your fear of heights? Do you know where it came from?
I can't place it.
Yeah.
I used to walk like, when you're young and you
Yeah.
walk on these walls and you do these fun stuff. I used to climb my house. We used to have a loft room. I used to climb the roof and stuff. So I'm
Mhm.
not sure at what point what's happened there, but we'll save that for
Because
a session. Right.
I can explain to you if you
Oh, okay. Go
how
on, go
like
on, go on. Give me.
phobias work, because it's obviously it's a stress response. So we have our primitive sort of minds, which is our jungle minds, and essentially like every day we think, we have stressful days, we have busy days, we think negative thoughts, then we go to sleep and our brains process all of everything that's gone on. That's how we have dreams. It can be literal, it can be metaphorical. We go to bed,
Mhm.
we process all of that stuff, and then we wake up feeling better. So that's where the whole saying like just sleep on it. If you've had an argument with someone, you might be annoyed with them, you go to bed, you wake up, you forget the argument's happened, or you're just feeling like not as bothered by it. And that's because your brain has literally processed that stress. But what with phobias, what can happen is that something a bit nerve-wracking could happen to you around heights or around the dentist. Maybe you had a bad experience at the dentist, but at that time you were also going through a lot of immense stresses. You were maybe very busy and you had all this other stuff going on, and essentially you then went to bed and your brain was like, I've got too much stress to deal with here. And so all of the other stuff gets processed, and that kind of gets left like a big nugget in your brain that sits there, meaning that every time you are confronted with that phobia, instead of having a rational response, which is, it's just a spider, I can move it out of the room, or it's just heights, you go into panic mode, and panic mode is your primitive responses, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. I went on a boys trip 2017, and then part of the trip was to do like this kayaking stuff and whitewater rafting, I think it was, and then we had to go up a cliff and then jump into the water. And they knew I was scared of heights, so they were really like, it's a boys trip, right? So they were just giving me so much,
of course,
trying to say the right word on the way there. And then when we got there, I just decided I wasn't going to be the first one to jump, and I'm not going to be the last one. And so somewhere in the middle, I just had to say to my brain, do not think, just do. And then I did it, and I jumped off, and it was liberating.
Oh wow,
But I
that's
think,
amazing.
yeah, it was pretty good. Like, I'm so glad I did it. But I think part of the reason I did it was there was a hen party behind us on the next
Well,
whitewater rafter. And I was like, I'm not going to be the guy who's like up here
your
shaking in
masculine
front of
energy out there,
it proper came out. And on the way there, I was like, because we had like paddles and stuff, we were splashing them and all the rest of it. So there was a competitive edge to it. And I was like, no, I'm not having it. I'm not having it. And I managed to jump off. But then I made a decision that, okay, look, if I'm able to do that, what's the scariest thing for me would be like a parachute jump, right? Even if it's tandem. So at some point, I want to try and do that.
Good for
But
you. Go encourage.
it's just, I
Go.
just have to.
Interesting that you said you were just like, do it. It just goes to show how thoughts negotiate us out of things, and how
Yeah.
thoughts cause the nerves. When you remove that, boom, you can really charge ahead, can you?
Definitely. I know we've talked about 2 episodes, right? So we're talking about, next time we're going to be talking about dating. And I think what you just said there would be a really interesting kind of overlap into, you can overthink things, read profiles, all the rest of it. But actually, a lot of it is just about, hey, how you doing? And seeing if there's a spark, and then going from there.
Yeah, well, if it comes to dating profiles in terms of apps, I think they have been designed to stop people from thinking. They're kind of designed in a way, in a swipeable way, where our brains are just half looking at them whilst watching the TV and taking a 3-second glance. Obviously, an utterly reductive, terrible way to treat human beings. People are so much more than a profile, but I think dating apps speak for themselves, really, in that there's I'm yet to meet somebody who has like positive feedback from your dating apps.
Well, we'll pause that there,
Yeah,
because I know you have a lot to say on the topic. And
yeah,
if you're listening to this or watching this, I'm going to put a little link to that episode down the bottom here or on the side, depending upon when you're looking,
yeah.
where you're watching this. So definitely go and check that out. All right. Love languages, Rebecca. Do you know your top 2 love languages?
No, I'm a bit greedy. I love a bit of passion and romance. I like quality time.
Nice.
I do like cooking for people.
Okay, so like an act of service. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, secret, spending time together, touch, all of it. But I do think it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think you can suss out a lot about a person based on how they show you love, in terms of how they like to receive love. So I do have friends that
Absolutely.
absolutely love to like give gifts. They always show up with, oh, I found this and I thought of you. And I'm kind of like, oh, that's how they show love. And so I realized that these small sentiments are the way that they like to receive love as well. So it's you can pick up on that from other people, I think.
I think you've said it better than I could have said it, because that's generally where I go with it as well. You pick up what they like to receive by what they give. Gifts is my worst one, right? So I'm going to send you a gift, actually. Sorry?
I said me too. I would say actually
Me
I
too.
like all of them, but I'm definitely not a gift receiver, or I don't like, I guess it's further down my list in things that I value in terms of connection, you know.
Shall I withdraw what I was about to say then? Because I was about to send you a gift.
Oh right. I mean, I'll still take a gift.
So this is the Courage Journal. It's a
Yay.
journal that I've developed. It's a prompted journal to help build courage over 31 days. So I'd love to send that to you, but also get your feedback based on your sort of clinical work as well as a hypnotherapist to see what you think about it.
Amazing.
But it's funny. The reason it came to mind was A, it's just sitting right there, and B, when I have gifted this to people, it's literally just the book in a in a pre-packed envelope type thing, and it gets to them. But
Mhm.
because I don't really care about gifts, right? So when I get a gift, I just want to open it, see what it is. But I think there is this like magic for people who love gifts where there's a box, there's a ribbon, there's
Yeah.
da, 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 da. For me, it's a lot of faff, but
Yeah. It's
maybe
all
I
about
should think
the
about that one.
entertainment, isn't it? And how you dress it up and
I'm like, no, put it in a gift bag and just take it out and boom, done. Anyway, all right. So let's talk about courage. I know, and I know that has been embedded in everything that we've talked about so far, anyway. But if we just take that word, what does it mean to you?
so courage to me is the opposite of fear, and living in fear is living without love. So I know that
Oh,
sounds very cheesy, but that's what you're working against and with ultimately. And so for me, I think courage is about um the ability to face your fears, which ultimately means being able to get comfortable with being uncomfortable in order to create growth, which will bring you closer to a frequency of like authenticity and love, I suppose.
mhm.
Mhm.
Interesting. Okay. So why do you think this is so important in our lives? I know we touched on authenticity before, so that might feed into this answer, but why do you think it's so important that we embrace courage?
Because every like most things we do in life do require some kind of resistance in order for us to like evolve. You know, if you go to the gym and you want to get strong, it hurts. You know, it's uncomfortable. You
Mm,
feel your muscles hurting and aching, and that's because your muscles are ripping apart so that they can grow and get stronger. And I think that's the same with anything. If you want to learn something, it takes repetition. It takes being bored. It takes consistency. And so without resistance, without things that are difficult, um, we have no growth and evolution. And I think if you look at our culture right now, where we are in a comfort crisis, if you like, where we are very privileged, we have access to lots of things. We can get food 7 days a week. We
mm,
can Google any pondering thought that we're having. And how empty is it making us feel? Because it's, you know, sometimes challenge and things that are hard are actually, although uncomfortable, very, very good for us and very fulfilling. And when you take that
mm.
away, I mean, look at like the classic kind of billionaires kids who grow up completely miserable because they've got everything. It is a part of life, which is having to do things that are uncomfortable, which is facing fear, which requires courage. And when you break that down to its core, it's the ability to be uncomfortable, to be comfortable with being uncomfortable in the moment.
Yeah, it's really well put. I like what you said about resistance there as well,
Mm-hmm.
because in some of those examples you see it. If I'm trying to think, let's say you join the military, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in the military, you've got your, I mean, I'm basing this on movies. I haven't been in the army or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but like you have your single bed, and you haven't got much in terms of luxury treats or anything like that. So that when you actually do get one, you've earned it, and it means so much, and it creates that joy within you. And but you don't get that without the resistance. You don't get that without building discipline or a sense of reward.
Absolutely. It's so much more joyful, isn't it? You know, it's like ice cream's nice, isn't it? But not if you have it every day for breakfast, it gets boring. We need,
Yeah,
and it's
totally.
funny because you can go, I mean, you can go so deep and philosophical with this stuff, can't you? Like what is happiness without sadness, you know? Like how can we enjoy our great gifts without having great darkness? The light comes in the
Mm,
dark. Everything in life is like an opposite, isn't it? There's love and there's hate. And actually there's a positive and a negative and a dark and a light, but they work together. They
mm.
inform each other in a way. So and if you're not living on one or two of the other sides, you're in the middle, so it's quite flat.
It's so interesting because there's a polarity there that you're speaking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you find you are in the middle, then you kind of lose a little bit of the essence of either one of those two things, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's love or hate, or you know, dare I say that courage is the bridge between the two sometimes. So if you're living in a perpetual state of fear, um, it takes courage to get to the place of peace and calm,
Absolutely,
to be
yeah.
able to do things.
That was a
Mm.
really nice way of putting it.
Well, thank you. I thought
Mm.
about it a little bit. Okay. So, what was a significant moment for you in your life when you chose to overcome a fear that you might have had and step into courage?
So obviously I mentioned already that I went to India when I was very
Mhm.
young, but that was actually off the back of me leaving school when I was 16, which
Wow.
took a lot of courage because I come from a very middle class family who are all like, university educated. And so I went completely against the grain, and it's not a decision that I've gone on to regret. I really hated school. I was incredibly unhappy at school. And I decided,
Are you saying you fled? You fled the country because you're like, no, my
well, no,
parents are going to
I
kill
left
me.
school, and it was like, what am I going to do? So I got a job in a shop,
Mm.
and it was like, oh, I'm going to go to India. I mean, God knows. I was naive. I wasn't really making a lot of plans.
It's like going with the flow, Rebecca
Yeah, I
stepped in.
mean, obviously my family weren't very happy about that, but I mean, it's going back to that nature and that essence thing, isn't it? Like, I just do believe that we are born with different, and they have these ideas in Chinese Taoism, and they have
Mhm.
these ideas in astrology. Even now we have like personality tests, don't we? But we are intrinsically, we have an essence, we have a nature. And I feel like some people have a nature and an essence that lines up very well with Western working culture and corporate culture, and I guess like our modern day more traditional values. And for me, like, I just can't stand the feeling of being institutionalized. And I'm still the same. I don't like like to work in jobs where I'm confined by corporate culture. And so I've continued to always be free of a workplace and free of a
Mhm.
boss. And I believe that just existed in me very, very young. And don't get me wrong, like, for me, it's all about seeking freedom. That's how I feel free. But I also realize that just people have different ideas about what helps them to feel free in the way that they live. And, I have friends and cousins who do the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. They have their weekends off. And that is a context in which they feel incredibly free because they know
Mhm.
when their time is off, they know how much money they're making each month, and they know when their holidays are. And so they can thrive in that environment because it aligns with their essence. And for me,
Mhm.
it doesn't. So it doesn't, so that's where that kind of like anti-institutionalized.
Has come from and then directed your path as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then in the context of what you do for a living, let's unpack a little bit of that, if that's okay.
Mhm.
So, courage, I guess, plays a big part of you when you work, from your perspective when you work with clients, but also from your client's perspective when they're trying to overcome, why they've come to you.
Mhm. I think for anyone coming into a room with a therapist, it's scary, isn't it? Because you're vulnerable. You're sort of going, something's not right. I don't feel right. And you're confiding in another person to help guide you through that process. So it absolutely takes a tremendous amount of courage. But it's such a positive move because you're taking the step to go, I'm going to work towards healing myself, even if it's scary. And then, of
Mm.
course, with hypnosis, a lot of people have preconceptions. I'm going to get you to do the funky chicken. I'm going to do woo, mind control.
Yep.
And, so people some people get very, very anxious about what are you going to do, and I'm like, you're not going to black out and leave the room. Like, in a way, I wish somebody had that power to kind of just click their fingers and change something. But
Yeah.
no, I'm going to guide you through a visualization journey in your mind. This is about completely allowing yourself to relax. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then, like, how do you approach clients who might not recognize that they need courage in a particular area?
So in therapy, it's kind of like a blueprint that you do not advise, you don't give advice, despite people thinking that. You really allow
Mm.
the person to figure out in their own way and resolve their own problems. And actually, like, for many of us, if someone says you should go to the gym or you should do this, we kind of rebel against that and go, well, I'm not going to do that now, even if it's good for me.
Mm.
Because people giving you advice, albeit with the best intention, does actually create a pressure response in our mind. So really the process of any kind of therapy is allowing that person um to figure out themselves what is going on and how to fix it. They are the master of their own solutions, and I guess you're just sort of there
Mm.
to help them, to just nudge them and guide them within that process.
I love that. That's that's so spot on. So I've been in and out of therapy for years.
Mm-hmm.
Had anxiety, chronic panic attacks like 20 years ago, and so I found the value of going to therapy, um, and so I have dipped in and out. And recently I was talking to my therapist, and she said, I said something about, oh, can you advise me? And she was like, no, you know, I'm not here to advise you. And I was like, oh, come on. Like, she's like, no, I'm here to support you make decisions that are right for you
Mm-hmm.
and work through that. And I was just like, yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And I think one of the things that we've got to be careful about, not just in therapy, but just in our relationships, is allowing to hold space for our nearest and dearest to be who they are. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Give opinion's fine, there's nothing wrong with opinion when asked for. I think that's a key part of it, but giving advice is really difficult because no one's walked in anyone else's shoes, and so it's really hard to say this just because it worked for me it's going to work for this person. It's more along the lines of, I can share my experience, which is what Go Encourage podcast is all about,
Mm-hmm.
understanding people's experiences and trying to hopefully walk away with some insight that could then, you know inform some of your decisions.
100%. It's like, I think it's such a great tool to take into, like, any of your relationships, your friendships, family relationships, your partner is exactly what you said, giving them space. And forgot what my my line of thought was there. Oh, that was it. Like, interesting. When you're a hypnotherapist, you don't use the words why or should. So
Mm.
again, it creates a pressure response. So I think that's also quite a nice thing to integrate when you are giving your a relationship space for someone else to figure out and solve their own problems. Try and avoid going, why are you doing that? Or should do this? Because again, it creates that pressure response.
Why should you avoid those words? I'm kidding. I'm just trying to be
I'm
silly.
under pressure. But it's funny
I'm
you
just
say that.
using those words. Why and should.
You do get people coming to you, and they come into therapy and they want advice. They're like, give me advice.
Yeah.
Because that's what they think it is. And it's like, and that is the part that requires courage, because it's like, I'm afraid to say, this isn't nothing. No therapy, no matter what you're going to do, is going to wave a magic wand and fix your problems. And there is nothing that, like, I can do or say that is going to help you. And I think sometimes people want a quick fix. Like, I'm going to go here,
Mm.
you're going to tell me what to do, and it's going to fix me. And then you have to put a
Mm.
spotlight onto them and say, no, you have to figure this one out for yourself. And
Mm.
that is the hard part. That is the part that takes a hell of a lot of courage.
Yeah. I'm watching a TV show at the moment called Suits. I'm a little bit late to the
Meghan
game because
Markle.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's in it.
Yeah.
Although I have to, oh, I shouldn't really say it, should I? I think I'd love to watch a. No, I can't say it. I'd love to watch a version of Suits where her character's not in it because I find her character's such a drag. The
She's a
character, not
controversial character anyway in real life, isn't
she is, and I'm trying to separate the person from the character, but the character's it's like it's a drag. But every other character, I just love the dynamics between
she?
them.
Yeah.
Um, I I love it so much that I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's not watched it. But the therapy aspect,
Mhm.
when maybe some key characters go through that, and you know the answer, or you're egging them on, and you're like, no, but the therapist is holding that space so said character can go through those emotions and process those
Mhm.
deeper foundational things in order to inform what they do. And it's quite easy to go point at the TV and go, oh no, you shouldn't do that. But then you go, well, hang on a minute. I know it's all fictional, but these writers are good researchers as well. So there is going to
Absolutely.
be some level of reality. And you see people go through that process. And I often ask myself, have I addressed this or have I addressed that? And how can I better inform myself of what my triggers are when I move forward and make decisions around things?
Mhm. Exactly. It helps us to deconstruct ourselves, our past, and how it's informing our current reality. And there's a
Yeah.
lot to that. And also, there's a thing in science called the observer effect, which means when you
Mhm.
observe something, it
Mhm.
changes form, which is kind of why
Mm.
when you're going into therapy and you're hashing everything out and going, well, this happened and my dad was unavailable when I was a child and now I date unavailable men, suddenly
Mhm.
just recognizing that connection in itself can be enough to kind of resolve it and change its form.
Mm.
So it is powerful having a space where you can go deep within yourself and your own journey.
Is there? Can you share a story? Obviously, keeping an anonymous nature for whichever client this might have been. But is there a particular story that you can share where someone you worked with needed to shift from something quite big, fearfully, and use courage to get through it?
Honestly, one of my favorite sessions to do with people is the smoking cessation, which is when you
Okay.
use hypnosis to stop smoking. Because it blows my mind every time. I still, I believe in this stuff. I do this work. I know it works. I still can't quite understand how like one 90-minute session can be enough for somebody to just like a light
Mm.
switch off, stop smoking. And I've known people that have smoked 80 a day and then one hypnosis session and they're not smoking again. And absolutely, like to conquer a habit like that does take courage, because going back to what we were saying earlier, it's your medication, it's your coping mechanism.
Mhm.
Um, it takes courage to let that habit go. Um, but it's like I've I've just had so many people. I've had people who really want to stop smoking, and they come into the room and they do it. But then the thing that always amazes me is that there are people who I sort of sense don't really want to stop smoking. And they're
Right.
kind of just throwing a bit of money at it to demonstrate to themselves that nothing works. And then
Mm.
it works. And I'm like, this is amazing. So I like that one. That's the magic one for me.
Yeah. So interesting. Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's the
Okay.
most effective. Might I add as well, it
Yeah.
is. It's been approved by the NHS, but it's considered to be the most effective form of stopping smoking. And it makes
It
total
really.
sense. Habits live in the mind. So, of course, why wouldn't you use something like hypnosis that works directly with the mind? And that's why I think it's such a shame that there's so many preconceptions and fear around hypnosis being mind control or woo woo, because it's not. It's about you taking control of your own mind so that you can
Mm.
empower yourself and change the things that you want to change. Because so many of us are at the mercy of our subconscious mind and our primitive responses. Imagine the infinite possibility that can happen in a space where you can dive into that,
Mm.
reprogram it, and take control of it. Like, I think it's amazing. And I'm biased, but I personally cannot see a future of therapy without some kind of hypnotherapy being incorporated into that, because self help, evolution, and change absolutely needs to integrate the subconscious mind.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and it's funny because it's the labels that put people off. You're saying hypnotherapy, but there's other labels that it comes into in terms of, I don't know, NLP to some extent, and
Mhm.
rewiring, like you're saying, subconscious tapping, all that kind of thing. There was a guest I had, Annalie Howling. So shout out if you're listening, Annalie. But she said the same thing. Like if you tell, she's a trauma informed specialist, and so she works. With people who have phobias as well, amongst other things. And she said the same thing that you said. She said if you can get to the source, you can change that behavior,
Mhm.
and it shows you how powerful the mind is, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was really inspired by your post about people being grateful for breadcrumbs. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah.
Um, but can you speak a little bit more to this? What inspired that post? Do you think people settle for less due to fear of stepping into their own full potential? Is it got something to do with their identity? What would you speak to that?
Well, I guess, I mean, I posted it because I've been there myself, in all honesty, but I have
Okay.
had friends. And so one of my kind of daily rituals is that every day I write a gratitude list in a journal.
Hmm.
I think it's a good practice to have. And I have friends who do similar kind of practices, but I often hear like,
I'm one of them, by the way. I'm
yeah,
chucking myself
absolutely.
and I
Lots of
do
people
it
do.
as
It's
well. It's amazing.
such a great thing to do. But
Mm.
I often hear people going, I'm so tired of being grateful for the breadcrumbs. Like nothing shows up in life, nothing ever changes, and I'm just done with it. And I get it. And I guess I'm kind of like, but the issue there is that when we're using these spiritual disciplines and practices, because we're like, it will get us something. It's a very
Mm.
different energy, it's a very different vibe. And I kind of see it as spiritual hygiene. I think it
Mm.
starting your day with like meditation or having a bedtime routine and journaling and affirmations are great things to essentially haul you into the present moment, and when we are in the present moment, that's when things can happen for us. But it also means that we can deal with the turbulences of life. When the turbulences show up, if opportunities show up, we're in a better position to make decisions. And like, I totally get it. Like when you are really, really depressed, being grateful is so hard. I've been there. Um, but everyone can do it. Like the sky is blue. There are green leaves on the trees. I have clothes on my body. I have like my vision, you know, my body is in working capable order. You can always
Mm.
find something to be grateful for, and it does make you feel so good when you do it. But it is about
Mm.
feeling good now. It's not about I'm just doing this so I can get something, which I think is that
Yeah.
kind of spiritual, capitalistic
Yep.
undertone to so much new age spirituality at the moment. And there's nothing
And then you
wrong.
lose the authenticity as well, right?
Yeah,
Because when you do it like that,
absolutely. So then you're not in
yep.
alignment. And don't get
Mm.
me wrong, of course, it's a natural human desire for all of us to kind of want things. We want abundance. It's, very universal. And I think, it's opened people up to a new way of thinking, but it can wear a bit like tiring sometimes
Mm.
when you sort of just feel that it's it's removing you from the point of spirituality, isn't it? Where it becomes all very individualistic and materialistic. Like the blueprint of
Right.
spirituality to me is like, we are all one, we're all connected.
Mhm.
So when you suffer, I suffer.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
let's help each other out here. So I guess you
Yeah.
get a little bit impatient with the individualistic nature sometimes of certain
Mhm.
new age spiritual practices. I
Yeah.
went off subject there, but
And it's really interesting, like, if we take the world and we look at Eastern philosophy and Western philosophy, and then you see where you take someone from the West who goes out to India and experiences that kind of really deep in the culture of servanthood and service and things like that.
Mhm,
Whereas in the West, I think, we're kind of programmed to be a bit more individualistic and sort of self-serving.
mhm,
Um, it's really interesting. And I think both have their pros and cons.
mhm.
But it's interesting that from a faith perspective, we all come to a realization that it is about what you can give, and the greatest form of love that you can experience is when you're serving another person.
Yeah.
I'm not saying not to receive, because that can bring problems as well, but just that level of like, we are one, we are connected. There is a love that binds us all together, all binds us all together.
Absolutely, but it's just so true. I mean, like if you look at things like the AA and 12-step program, it's all about like, as part of my own recovery journey, I will you sponsor someone, so I will help someone else
Mm.
to help myself. It's very cheesy, but it is absolutely the purpose of life, I believe, is to help other people. And in that process, sometimes we have to help and heal ourselves so that we are better able to do that. But it is, for me, what embodies ultimate fulfillment. I think it's
Mm.
within our DNA, it's within our nature, it's within our
I agree.
spirit.
I was about to say it's within our spirit, but you beat me to it.
There you go.
Um,
Yeah.
And I'll take it. I don't know if I'm going to start the war on cheesy because
I love it.
everyone does it.
Cheesy.
Yeah, I think cheesiness gets a bad rap. I think there's so many universal truths that we all know, um, and I think we need to hold on to those things because they're
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
We could do
Um,
in Britain with being a bit more cheesy. We're very
I think so.
self-deprecating, which I like it. That's a humbleness. There's a humbleness to it as well. But it's nice. I like some of the American cheese, like,
Yes,
yeah,
I agree.
positivity,
I agree because I
Love
think
yourself.
Americans.
Nothing wrong with that.
I totally agree. I was talking to someone yesterday, and I was saying the American culture for me is so attractive
Mhm,
because there is the American dream, this chase for
mhm,
something better, something grander, like developing yourself and moving forward.
mhm,
Not that I've ever been to America, so I don't know if that plays out in the reality of everyday life,
mhm.
but the idea behind it.
Yeah,
And then in British culture, it is self-deprecating, but there is a bond that comes with that
yeah,
as well.
mhm.
Like we're all as bad as each other, and
Yeah, it's
therefore we're all
humility,
right.
isn't it?
Yeah, there is a bit of humility, but there's also a bit of um, un- it's unfortunate. But if someone makes it to a particular level, then we kind of feel like we have to bring them down a peg or two.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that can be a little bit of a tricky thing as well.
Mhm,
But yeah, it's so interesting the way that culture works.
mhm.
Um, and I'll speak to. I've never lived in India. My parents are from there.
Oh,
Um,
right. Have you been to India though?
I've been to India about 4 or 5 times in my
So
life.
whereabouts in India are your parents from?
So I'm from kind of like mainland Punjab, but you might have heard of like the Golden Temple in India.
Mhm,
Um, that's up there in Amritsar. But what I found I went to India when I was about 2, so I can barely remember it.
mhm.
Although I can tap into one memory from when I was 2 years old in
Ah,
India,
that's
and
amazing.
that's mad. It's the only thing I remember, and it was a dog,
Mhm,
but it was a beloved dog in India. And my granddad, he used to give me little sweeties
mhm.
when I wasn't probably allowed them back then. But anyway, I'm just like having a therapy session. And but then I didn't go back till I was about 17. And I think it really hit me when I went back when I was 17, and I felt so entitled as a human being when I went to India, when I saw the level of poverty, um,
And
and
back then, I mean, India's changed a lot in the last 20
Mhm.
years, like a lot. Like
Yeah,
like polio was everywhere when I went there, and then the last time I
yeah,
went back, it was gone. Like you couldn't see
yeah.
it.
Yeah, my cousin actually had polio, and his older brother used to carry him on his back like a rucksack to take him around
No,
places and things like that. Like intense poverty. It was mad.
it's on
But what it
another
did for me,
scale, isn't it? It's just on another scale.
like as soon as you come off that plane, even you just breathe in that air, you're like, what? What has happened to my life? What's going on? But what I found there was amongst all of that, there was so much gratitude,
Mm,
there's so much hospitality, and there's so much interest in serving one another.
mhm,
Um, it's embedded into the culture. There's this saying in India that you treat your guest like God has come to your house.
mhm.
This level of hospitality that
Yeah,
they have, this level of we need to feed you, all of that kind of thing, look after you.
absolutely. Yeah,
It's a,
no.
it's a beautiful thing.
It's just
Yeah.
such an incredible place, and
Mhm.
spirituality is everywhere.
Everywhere. You
Everything
can
goes back
sense it.
to God there, and I kind of love that too.
Yeah. It is intense when it comes to spirituality, and people, they go like, so my dad's eldest brother,
Mhm.
when he was alive, he was a guru, he was a swami actually, and so he had his base by the river Ganges, and he had like thousands of followers, etc. He's kind of a big deal,
Wow.
but that took him away from the family, so the family didn't really know him. He kind of went off and did his thing.
Is that what you do when you're, like, at old age, isn't it? Is it a part of Hinduism, am I right?
Yeah, so it's part of
And
Hinduism,
you
but he
wear
did
the
that
or
as
you just kind of, like, you embrace it's the different stages of life, and then you embrace, like, the final stage, which is the wise man and
kind of, but he, in his particular case, from my understanding anyway, is like he would be the equivalent of a vicar, of a priest,
yeah.
here.
Mhm.
But he was like, people would travel far and wide to come and see him and get, a blessing and all the rest of it. I think I only ever met him like twice in my life. Um, but so my dad came from like a more of a Hindu background,
Mhm.
whereas my mum came from more of a Sikh background, and they're more like God is one, you know, all roads lead to God, that kind of thing. Is a bit more. There's a lot of inclusivity. Um,
Mhm.
I don't want to speak for either religion on a grand scale, but like for me, just my personal experience, it was interesting to have like a bit of a mishmash of cultures, and even within that, there's like a caste system for both. There's all sorts of things going on.
Mhm.
So I definitely experienced a lot of interesting, fascinating spiritual dynamics. And when we went to India, you know, managed to go to places that all had different kinds of ways of thinking and stuff. I remember this one time. Again, look, it's turned into like my podcast now, and you're asking me questions. But like, um, I went to this place where this wise man, came to give some input into what was going on in this village or town, maybe. And I spoke up, and you're not supposed to do that. Like as a young 17-year-old, you're not supposed to speak to the, you know,
Mhm.
whatever. But I'm who I am, you know, and so I just spoke into the situation, and then there was this sense of, and I think I always have had a spiritual dynamic to
Mhm.
my life. And then there was this recognition to this person who's come from the West, who's come in with this knowledge about whatever. I can't even remember what the topic was now. And then at the end, everyone was bowing down to him, and I didn't.
Oh.
So, you know, that conformity we were talking about before, and like, you know, and so I just shook out my hand to shake his hand because we kind of met on an intellectual level on this particular topic. And everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, you don't do that, you don't do that."
Oh no.
And then he looked at me and he smiled and he shook my hand, and he went on. And again, it comes back to that whole thing about, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier on in the podcast, but I often say that I think the world is tired of experts. I
Mhm.
think the world wants authentic connection, and I
Mhm.
think we all have some goal to share with each other. You
Mhm.
know, and I think when we do that, that giving, that receiving, we actually strengthen each other's experience as we move forward.
I mean, I feel like you pretty much just summed up there, like what for me, what I believe this human existence is about. I mean, that's what you always hear from people who have near death experiences, that they realize every person is contributing. We are all
Mm,
connected, just like you say. So, like, we all have our own thing that we learn and we bring to the
mm.
bigger table of a collective consciousness, you
Yeah.
know?
Can I ask? I think when we had our initial talk, you mentioned your father,
Yes.
and you mentioned there's a real inspirational courage piece there. Could you
Mhm.
speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so my dad was in his retire having worked all his life, finally retired and went traveling around the world on his bike. And he had a really like terrible bike accident in Java in Indonesia.
Mhm.
And he flew off his bike, and I got one of those horrible phone calls to say that he was in a hospital in Java that was like an amazing hospital, wonderful staff, but it was totally under resourced, and there were like cats running around the ward and everything. And he basically had fractures to the skull, swelling of the brain, a broken back, a broken collarbone, broken face bones, a punctured lung. I mean, he was mangled basically.
Mm.
And my mum witnessed it, so she was freaking out and wasn't communicating um, to me anyway. And then yeah, and so it was one of those, is he going to make it through the night? And I had to jump on 3 flights to the other side of the world. And he got moved from that hospital to Bali. And what was to begin was like a month-long journey of recovery. But yeah, he did come through, but he had no memory and no words. So we were like, okay, he survived, but he's like, is he going to be like impaired, in terms of
Mm.
his mental capacities? But then he kind of was coming through day by day. He then had to have like major spinal surgery, which would potentially have left him unable to walk. So then you're like, okay, he's going to be in a wheelchair. So there are all these phases. It was so bizarre. Like life is just strange, isn't it? Because I was in this tropical paradise, and I was staying, in quite a nice hotel with like, juices and like pantries. But I'm also in this misery of going to a hospital back and forth. And,
Mm.
for anyone that's like lost parents or anything, you know, you question your own mortality. It makes you look at the broader picture of life and the stages of life and how quick everything goes. But yeah, his day by day, his memory and personality came back, and then he was in a wheelchair, and then eventually he was kind of on a Zimmer frame, and then it took a while for us to be able to get home, but eventually we got home, and he recovered really quickly, and then within like 10 months of his accident, he was back on his bike around the world again, and went back to the hospital that
Wow.
saved his life. And for
Wow.
me, it was like, what I put it down to is I'm like, my dad just has a no nonsense attitude. He just does not complain. He shows up, he does what he has to do. He did his rehabilitation. And of course, he was suffering tremendously. It must have been terrifying, but he
Yeah.
just got on with it. And I really absolutely believe in the body's ability to heal and restore itself. And I really do think that his attitude is what helped him with that. And again, anything's possible. Like like your body can heal itself. Our bodies are
Mm.
designed to heal itself. And I just sort of feel like it's us that gets in the way of that. So yeah, so that was quite an amazing thing.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
incredible. And
it had a happy
the
ending, luckily.
yes, thankfully,
Yeah.
thankfully. And I love how it ties in with what you were saying earlier on about your dad would have had to have had resilience. He would have had to have courage. He would have had to have something within him that said, move forward,
Yeah.
go, like go encourage,
Mhm.
move forward.
And going back to the comfortable of being uncomfortable, it's a one day at a time. Okay, right
Hmm.
now I
Hmm.
have to figure out how I can lift my arms above my head, just very
Hmm.
basic in the moment things. And that's really when you break down courage to its nuts and bolts. It's about right here, right now, I have to feel this and it's uncomfortable, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with that. Thank you for sharing that. Shout out to your dad. Big shout out to your dad. Um, and then I was going to ask you a little bit about, so you mentioned about, gratitude diary, journaling, things like that. Is there a particular routine, a mindset, practices that can help build good habits? Do you have one that's specific to you?
Mhm.
If someone's listening, they could sort of take that away with them and maybe put that into practice.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I try to, in fact, I do show up for every day I have for the last couple of years is just taking 20 minutes to write down things I am grateful for. Some days that's harder than others, you know, but there's always,
Hmm.
and it just makes you feel good. It's really nice. And then I
Hmm.
do write affirmations, you know.
Hmm.
I nourish my body with nature's finest foods. That's the hypnotist in me. The mind loves imagery and words. So, like, my tip to anyone that does affirmations would be colorful and poetic with your words. Create a picture in your mind. And again, it's
Hmm.
I just write them because it makes me feel good. And I try to. I don't always, but I try to meditate every day for half an hour. Um,
Ooh, half an hour. Wow.
yeah, it makes such a difference. I mean, it's like going to the gym. You feel so much better when you go, don't you? But it's like not always easy to show up. So I try to do that first thing in the morning before I have my
Hmm.
coffee, and it
Hmm.
absolutely sets me up for the day when I do it. Uh, and then the other thing that I really I think when it comes to like the subconscious mind, our subconscious mind's really open first thing in the morning and last thing at night. So these are good times to integrate these practices. And so I love that moment before you go to sleep because there's so much possibility there to like reprogram your subconscious mind, get answers about things that you're
Hmm.
confused about. When we fall asleep, you know, as your kind of body's getting a bit sleepy and floppy and your thoughts are getting a bit weird, that's when you are going into a hypnagogic state. So it's like a deep state of hypnosis, and essentially your
Hmm.
thinking mind switching off and your subconscious mind is open. And if you can maintain consciousness in that space, you can actually ask yourself questions, you know, about things that you are confused about in your life or guidance. So I use that space to ask a question. And again, subconscious mind isn't like why or should. So I might say something like, um, show me what's holding me back from X, Y, and Z. And then for
Mm.
me, I find that those answers emerge within your dreams, or you will wake up in the middle of the
Mhm.
night and it's the first thing that comes to you, or it's for those of you that aren't woken up by children in the morning, but if you wake up in the morning, it's the first thought that comes to you before you kind of shuffle or stretch, if you can just kind of maintain consciousness when you wake up. And
Mm.
so there's just, when you play around with it, there's so much there, you know. We
Mm.
have all the answers within us, and you can kind of weave them out by playing with that state of sleep a bit. So I like that.
Yeah, that's really good. And I guess a piece of advice
Mhm.
to anyone listening, we are kind of hijacked by our phones during those times, you know, like the last thing you do before you go to sleep, I don't know, scroll something, read something, whatever. And then the first thing you do when you wake up, check your messages, check your emails or socials or whatever. And so you are kind of robbing yourself on either end of the day when you're in those kinds of states, from having those kinds of real moments of inner intimacy, of being present and allowing your
Mhm.
subconscious to kind of connect with your conscious.
And it's just like a couple of minutes, like a 10-minute moment before you go to bed. And it's funny, people talk about hypnosis being mind control. And I'm
Mm.
like, well, you might want to consider what you're listening to before you fall asleep, because that is
Mm.
literally going directly into your subconscious mind. And so is worrying. You know, if you're going to bed panicking and worrying about the next day, and I've got to do this and I've got to do that, you're perpetuating those anxieties because you're wiring them into
Mm.
your mind. And I get
Mm.
it, like it's hard to kind of be positive and move us aside, but you have an opportunity to set your day up the following day, and that is in that 5-minute window before you fall asleep. You know, if you try and think clearly, if you try and think nice thoughts, that's going to get wired in. But also you can play around with that space as well, in terms of like
Mm.
finding stuff out to help guide you.
Totally agree. And people use the term, "Oh, you're being brainwashed,"
Mhm.
and I'm like, maybe my brain needs a little wash, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a
Right?
cleansing thing.
It's a cleansing things. Yeah. All right. Well, what's a final piece of a nugget of wisdom that you'd like to give anyone who's listening today, before we wrap up?
Gosh, I don't know. I just,
Not
as
sure.
you said, everything about the themes of this podcast, which is live in courage. Your
Yes.
greatest gifts, I absolutely believe, come out of your darkest times. So if you are in a dark time, trust that it is leading you somewhere. It absolutely is. Hindsight is a great thing. We don't know what it is when we're in it, but there will be something on the other side of it.
Mm.
And have the courage to kind of ride those more turbulent times, which means allow yourself to feel your feelings, get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, and just be kind to yourself.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I know that people would want to know how to connect with you. So, are you able to speak to that a little bit? What's the best way of someone who's listening today with some more follow-up questions? Maybe they want to use your service. Maybe they just want to ask you a question. Where can they get hold of you?
Absolutely. So you can DM me on Instagram at Rebecca Jackson Hypnosis.
Hmm.
I'm on TikTok as well by the same name. And you can visit my website, www.rebeccajacksonhypnosis.com. And yeah, I do like sessions in person in Glasgow and online as well.
Okay,
Mhm.
fantastic. Um, I've got nothing but gratitude to give you.
Well,
Like,
thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much. I
much.
feel like saying
No, we
namaste. We've had so many conversations about India today. So,
yeah, and I know you're coming back. So
absolutely.
we've
Next
already
one's going to be a juicy one, isn't it?
next one's going to be pretty juicy, and I'm
Yes.
really excited to get your input and yeah, unpacking some of that. So, if you're listening to this way in the future of when we've recorded this, if that makes sense,
Mhm.
time is not linear. Well, maybe it is linear, but that's something else. A debate for another time. But you can have a look at that episode in the link below if you're watching on YouTube, or maybe it'll pop up on the screen. I don't know where. I'm not that organized, but it'll come up somewhere here, and you can link to that episode. But I'm really, really excited about having that chat with you as well. And I really
Yeah.
appreciate that you jumping on as part of the relationship series. So thank you, Rebecca.
Well, it's been great talking to you. I've had a lot of fun, so thank you for having me.
You're most welcome, and looking forward to the next one. And thank you again from the bottom of my heart and from everyone who's listening in today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, really hope you enjoyed that episode, and I hope there was something there that you can take away and reflect on. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can do so publicly on YouTube via the comments, or if you prefer to be more private, you can DM me on Instagram, and the handle is @goencourage. You can also find links to everywhere that I'm on the website, which is www.goencourage.com, where you can find a copy of the Courage Journal. You can find links to Instagram, TikTok, all the places, and you can have a look at the Go Encourage blog, which is in development at the moment as well. All right, whatever you're doing, whatever you're facing, my encouragement to you is to keep moving forward and to go encourage. I'll see you on the next episode.